Now this video is going to demonstrate how to replace and fix a ASM disk group that is set in high redundancy mode when there are failed disks. How do we recover from that scenario? All right, so before we start talking about recovering from lost disk, let's make sure we are clear on a few things. Number one, ASM disk group has different types of redundancy policy. Okay. So in external redundancy, be mindful that every piece of data is only stored once. Every allocation unit or every piece of data is stored once. If your external redundancy disk group is spread across, for example, 5 drives, if you lose any single one drive, the entire disk group is toast because you lost data, and there's nothing out there that can reconstruct the missing data. So if you imagine that somehow there are 5 drives, right? Okay, you got 5 drives. So there you have it. And you have A, B, C, D, E. And if you lose one of the drive, you lose one piece of the data, there's nothing that can give you back that data. Okay, if you lose it, you're toast. Time to restore. Okay, stop trying to somehow fix the external redundancy failed disk. There's no fix. The only thing you can do is to create a replacement disk group and start restoring your data. Okay, remember ASM is a storage volume storage manager. It's not if you choose external redundancy, you are responsible to guarantee that storage device is externally redundant. So if somehow one drive disappears, it's imperative that your Oracle doesn't need to know about it. Okay, so behind the scene, you have to figure a way to bring that back. External redundancy. External redundancy is ideal if you have an external SAN that has its own way of protecting your data. Okay, RAID 1, RAID 10, RAID 5, what have you. Okay, so long as you have a way to make sure that a loss of a physical drive, hard disk, does not cause the drive to disappear from ASM perspective. Now, sometimes for peace of mind, ASM also supports 2 additional redundancy level. Okay, normal redundancy and high redundancy. There is a minimum requirement for normal redundancy to be 2 or more ASM disks. Okay, you need 2 or more ASM disks in order to achieve normal redundancy. So when you write the word A on drive 1, there's an A in drive 2. When you write the word B, okay. All right, so let's suppose we put 3 drives in a normal redundancy, and you decide to store the letter ABC. Okay, so it will be stored this way. So in case you lose any one of the drives, such as you lost the middle, you still have the whole data available. Okay, so if you lose 1 out of the 3 on the normal redundancy, it's a matter of rebalancing the disk. Okay, so if you lose this drive, not a problem. Okay, we can still achieve the level of redundancy by simply rebalance the data like I'm doing right now. Oops. So after you rebalance the data, you again have 2 copies of everything. Okay. So the trade-off, obviously, for normal redundancy is you're going to have half of the storage if you only have 2 drives. If you have 3 drives, it's not exactly half. It starts to thin out. Okay, the more disk you have in normal redundancy, the less percentage you are going to dedicate to redundancy. But bear in mind, it can only protect you against single drive outage. Okay. All right, so if you lose a single drive, no problem. We can still rebalance the data. And you're going to be okay. You're going to, even if you lose one of the last two, okay, you're still going to have the same data as long as it has been balanced. Okay, it will only protect you from single drive outage when the data is perfectly balanced. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if you're down to a single drive in a normal redundancy, bear in mind your disk group will refuse to mount. Okay, because if we mount it for service, what happens? We're not really guaranteeing the normal redundancy at that point, right? We're only storing all the data in one place, so this disk group is not really fulfilling its promise. So it's not going to mount and service customer normally. All right, and high redundancy simply has to have 3 or more disks. You can have more, absolutely. Okay, now it will protect you from 2 drive failure because every piece of data is written 3 times. Now, obviously the pro is high safety. You have the same data, and the drawback is you're writing the same data twice or 3 times. Okay, in a normal redundancy, you're writing every data twice. In a high redundancy, you're writing every data 3 times. Now, if you have dedicated I/O channel, that's not a problem. But if you don't have a dedicated disk channel, switching fabric for these remote devices, you're going to wind up having half of your disk bandwidth because you're going to have to write double the amount for the same amount of data you're trying to write. All right, so that being said, again, same rule applies. If you only have 3 drives, you lose one, you're not going to lose data in high redundancy, but at the same time, you cannot mount the disk group normally because it cannot guarantee the redundancy level. But it can survive up to 3 drive failure. All right, so here we are. Okay. Actually, let's take a look at our tab first. We have a ASM instance, right? So make sure we set it to the right instance. I want to quickly bring up ASM CA tool just to give an overview of what we have at this moment. Okay, so ASM CA comes up. So right now we have a demo disk group. Note how it's currently set in a high redundancy mode. Okay. Okay. It's currently mounted. Okay, you can add additional disk if you have disk available. We really can't drop any of the disk, right? Because it's high redundancy. Dropping one. Let's see what happens when we try to drop one. All right. So notice you really can't do it. Demo failed with the following message: incompatible with disk group redundancy. It just tells you, like, duh, why are you trying to do this to me? Because you want every piece of data to be stored 3 times. Okay, but we simply can accomplish what you want us to do. Okay, so notice we have 36 gigabyte made by 3 drives. Okay, the usable is only 1/3, and it's just the nature of the beast. Okay, so right now I have 3 drives. Now, because I'm on a virtual machine, okay, if I happen to lose one of the drive, okay, involuntarily. So right now I really can't do it without turning off the machine. So I'm going to just abruptly shut down the machine, and I'm going to this storage, and I'm going to try to secretly unplug one of these. Okay, now let's see what happens when we lose one of the drives. All right, so folks, I just I just finished rebooting the system, and I'm currently tailing the alert log for ASM. Okay. Now you would notice that as I'm telling this, the ASM agent is trying to mount the disk group demo. Now, as hard as try to do, and notice we're trying to mount this, assigning number 2 to disk, D3, D6. There is not enough disk. Okay, there's not enough disk to uh, okay, mount the disk group demo. Okay, and it's going to tell you why. The reason why it cannot be mounted is because the disk group is incomplete. We're missing disk number 4 from group number 2. All right, so it's going to say, well, we certainly can't mount this at this point. All right. Now, it's the correct assessment, by the way. We lost the disk. Okay. We can connect the sysASM. We can try to alter disk group demo mount. And of course, whether agent is doing it or we're doing it, it doesn't make any difference. We can't mount it. But like Star Wars, if you can't mount it, you can always use the force. And by using the force, let's see what happens. What does the alert log says? Well, not a whole lot. Okay, it says alter disk group demo mount force. Okay, now this will allow us to mount, but you should not be trying to run your database off a disk group that's mount force. Okay, we need to mount this disk group so we can perhaps add a replacement disk and rebalance the data. At this point, remember, ASM does not have data dictionary. ASM does not have ways to find out how is a disk group configured other than reading the disk group header. So if the first thing before we go about fixing the disk group is somehow we need to be able to access the headers of these disks that makes up the disk group header. So by doing a quick mount force, we can now read some information from, for example, $ASM underscore disk group, and perhaps learn about group number. So what is, we know it's demo disk group, so it's fine. We don't need to search for that. Okay, we can also look at ASM disk. Oops. All right, so. All right, so from this ASM disk group view, views, you can find out information about your disk groups and your disk. All right, so look at the name disk number. You can find out one of the disk is currently indeed missing, okay, from ASM disk, and it's part of the demo disk group. All right. Well, now we're going to shut down the system, and there isn't a whole lot of thing to do at this point other than trying to, in this demonstration, we're going to try to add in an additional disk to replace this failed disk. All right, so here we're just going to use the VirtualBox to plug in a new replacement disk. So after rebooting the system, we can see now in the partition we have a brand new drive that replaces the lost drive. Okay. So it's SDF, it has no partition in it. We're going to first fdisk this disk and create a partition, primary partition. Okay, and for new partition, P for primary, partition number 1. Okay, take all defaults, write the partition table. Next, we need to still stay as root. Okay, let's confirm the partition does exist. SDF1. Fabulous. Now we're going to use Oracle ASM, create disk command to stamp the header of this disk to make it available to our ASM instance. All right. So it's going to go ahead and create a disk, and looks like it's done. All right. Alright, so here we connect as sysasm and issue the command alter disk group demo add disk group. I actually made a mistake here. There's no space. There should be no space. So the command here is orcl:_d7. Okay, given a that's this name will be available as long as you have Oracle ASM lib and the supporting packages on your OS. Okay, your disk path will be identified as such. All right. Now here's also rebalance power option. The rebalance power can be ranged from 1 to 11. The higher the number, the faster it will finish rebalance the disk. Okay. Now only upon rebalancing the disk will be open for business. Now we are going to switch over to my database instance and try to create a table space to see if I can indeed place a data file on that disk group, just to confirm that the repair did indeed work. So I'm going to put that in the demo disk group, the given size. All right. So that's that. Again, to recap everything we've done so far. Okay, you can of course use ASM CA and right-click Add Candidate Disk. Now they'll be going through the GUI. Now either way is fine. All right. So in conclusion, make sure you know what type of disk group you're dealing with. Now to know what type of disk group you're dealing with, first you got to find out the disk group that has failed. What type of redundancy is it? Okay, and the number of disks that's actually missing without ASM disk group. I was going to tell you the data is external redundancy. If you lose one disk, you're toast. Okay, your FRA is also external redundancy. External redundancy is a promise that your storage admin must make to the DBA that this disk is reliable. Okay, so if there is any mechanical failure in the disk level, there has to be a means to recover from such failure without having to disturb Oracle installation at all. Okay, so that's external redundancy. Someone has to make the promise the data is solid. Okay, running external redundancy on a single SCSI drive is it's not a wise choice. Now, if you're on high redundancy, okay, then you can survive up to 2 disk failure. And that concludes our demo.